This is a more complex way of making cylinders, which is also more accurate, but it's a bit more advanced too, so if you're not sure about your two-point perspective skills, maybe stick with the beginner level. Again, you begin with a cube that could fit around your cylinder to be, like I've illustrated for you above. You can make this any height, any width, but it needs to be able to fit around your cylinder. Now you connect opposite corners of the cube's top face to form an X. This X, as well as the edges of the top face, will act as your guide as you create tick marks that kind of act like connect the dots as you create an ellipse. I begin by looking at each segment of this X, going from the center to one of the corners, and I make a mark 1/3 of the way in from each corner to the center. You can see how I've illustrated this above. You should end up with 4 tick marks, one for each segment of the X. After that, you add tick marks which split each edge of the top face of the cube in half. I'll highlight these for you now, so you can see each of the tick marks that I've made. And if you connect the dots with a little imagination, you can see how these begin to form an ellipse, or an oval, or a circle that's been turned to an angle. You use each of these tick marks as a guide, sort of like connect the dots, to create your ellipse. You create a curving line which hits each of these points, and that should be the top face of your cylinder. Now the same tick mark rules apply on the bottom of the cylinder, so you'll see me creating the bottom of the cube where it would be present if we could see it, and then repeating the same tick mark rules. I draw the X by connecting each of the corners. In this case, this line goes really close to that vertical line on my cube. Repeat for the other corners. And then add tick marks 1/3 of the way from the corner to the center. And add lines that go 1/2 the width of each edge. And now I have the connect the dot points for my ellipse. Again, using these as guides for drawing my ellipse, or the bottom edge of my cylinder. Now I add vertical lines for the sides of the cylinder. These lines should run tangent to your top and bottom ellipse, meaning that they just barely hit the outermost point on the left and right sides, as I illustrated for you there a moment ago. Those are the edges of my cylinder, as I can see them in 3D space. And now I can erase any lines that I no longer need. This includes most of the cube, as well as any other construction lines, those X's, but also the back of the bottom ellipse, because that would really be covered by the body of the cylinder. And now I'll shade a bit of this cylinder just to make it a bit clearer for you in perspective. A similar process can be used for a cylinder that's rolled on its side, except instead of the top and bottom of the cube, you use 2 opposite sides of a box in perspective. As you can see here, the box still needs to fit around the cylinder that I'm going to make. Again, I begin by drawing my X from one corner to the other, and repeating for the opposite side. Again, I add tick marks, splitting each side of the face in half, as well as going 1/3 of the way in from each corner of my cylinder's front face. Just like before, I need to draw in that imaginary back face of the cube, of the box, so that I can create my X and my ellipse on that face. I repeat the process of creating the X and tick marks on this side, so I can draw another ellipse on the opposite end to create the back side of my cylinder. Just like before, I can add the edges of my cylinder where they would be visible by connecting two lines to the outermost points of each ellipse. And finally, I erase any lines I no longer need. Just like before, the body of the cylinder would cover much of that back face, so I can erase some of that ellipse that I drew.